Let me tell you why authoritarian experts are leaving the United States. And it's not because they don't want to fight for the country, it's because they have given up on the reality that you will fight for the country, particularly that our opposition will fight for the country. And given that 4 Democrats voted for the SAVE Act, we know this to be true. And I've been telling you, it's more likely that Republicans will convince Democrats to vote like them, like extremists, than for Democrats to push Republicans. Unfortunately, this can only be achieved when the economy is at stake, but now when social rights and constitutional rights is at stake, because that's not important enough, you know? The fact that they're Yahtzees, that's not enough to actually resist, but the economy, that is enough to resist. That is a historical characteristic of authoritarian control, where they allow for the people to actually uphold their order, because as long as there is a promise of economic prosperity, it doesn't matter if you have to sacrifice social and constitutional rights. Why? Because usually those are removed through traditional and constitutional channels unconstitutionally, but as long as there is official channels, then it can be said to be legal, right? Like the Holocaust, that was legal. And this isn't just a one-side thing, even with just the American population, but our opposition party. They didn't say constitutional crisis until they started touching the agencies, until they started touching the economy, tariffs. But when it comes to social harms, when it comes to removing trans rights, when it comes to kidnapping residents in the United States, it's fine. The Democratic Party still thinks that it can use rules and regulations that this administration doesn't care about in order to save us. And the reality is that they keep you apathetic, but making you believe that it's only 4 years. You know, it's only 4 years and the primaries will save us, but it won't. If we don't do anything before that, we won't get to the primaries, because you know how they're going to control the primaries even if you vote. Voter buyouts, which they already said was legal. Voter repression, like the SAVE Act. Vote toss-outs. These are campaigns how Mexico's PRI party, Conservative Deregulation Party, Neoliberal Party, maintained control for over 70 years and across the 3 branches. Now, what makes our government think that we're special is American exceptionalism, right? But also the fact that if the Democratic Party accepts that there's lawlessness and that the Constitution is now meaningless, that would create anarchy within society, so they'll rather have authoritarianism and dictatorship than anarchy in society. That is why they didn't question the election results. That is why they didn't go for the disqualification clause, because in admitting that there's lawlessness in the government, you are allowing for the population to say, if the law doesn't apply to them, why does it apply to you? So they're keeping this facade that the law and constitution are working. Say, well, the courts are still working on it. No, they're not. They're dragging it on in order to allow for him to do whatever he wants. And this is the thing, because maximum impact can be done by blue states, but it's difficult. I mean, 2 of the representatives who voted for the SAVE Act, one of them was from Maine, one of them was from Washington, another from Hawaii, the last one from Texas. No surprise there. So blue states have basically accepted that they are forced to be in alignment with the federal government, even though technically, when you look at our American constitutionalism, it allows for that disconnection when the federal government is violating the Constitution and there's no branches who are capable of fixing that, which is the crisis. But the Democrats keep moving the goalposts for a constitutional crisis. So we're over here waiting for 4 years to end when we don't realize it's not gonna fucking end. And that's why they're leaving. That's why they're leaving, because you're fucking apathetic to what's happening, all right? And what does that mean? That it's not gonna end anytime soon. Because you're apathetic, because you think we have time. You think that the original process of removing him are gonna work, when in fact, what's happening? There's patriots who are resigning across the board, being inputted by loyalists, that even if the Democrats got some sort of control, would be compromised. And Democrats are centrist enough to where they will allow for that bipartisan allowance of his loyalists to remain in order to not be seen as too radical or leftist. Why didn't they question the election? Because they didn't want to be like the MAGA in 2021. They want to be virtuous, and this is why we're here. This is why we're not fighting to our maximum potential, and this is why experts are leaving, because not because they don't want to fight, because they know that you don't want to fight. And sure, there were 5 million on April 5th, but how many would be there if there weren't tariffs, if there weren't economic threats, the social threats, constitutional threats aren't enough. And that's all of that when it comes to our opposition party just bending the knee because they think they have no other choice. They think they're powerless. And you agree that they're powerless because you're like, they don't have numbers. But whatever maximum thing that they had, just like a 20-plus-hour fucking speech, they could have done that before, but they didn't see a value in doing it before. Whatever they can use when it comes to procedures in the future, in the upcoming future, they could have used that before, but they didn't want to. Why we're still here is unwillingness from our party and unwillingness from you. And I myself find it questionable whether or not to go because ultimately you want to fight in the belly of the beast, right? But when you look at the reality that there's so many Americans who are apathetic to what's occurring and just believe that it's going to be 4 years, it's like, okay, maybe I'll let you live that fantasy of 4 years and then, you'll be not free after 4 years and I'll be somewhere else. Because a red flag is that authoritarian experts didn't think it was a smart idea to stay. Why? Because they gave up on you fighting for the country.